Stop right here. This moment is not coincidence. Heaven has paused everything around you, so this message could reach your ears. You have been scrolling, searching, waiting for something real, and now Heaven interrupts your scrolling to speak directly to your soul. You feel it. Don't you? That sudden stillness inside, that trembling in your spirit that says this is different. It's not another motivational clip. This is divine alignment. This is God reclaiming your attention, because your focus has been under attack. You are not here by accident. You were drawn here by divine design. There's been a silent war waged for your mind distractions, doubts, endless noise, and Heaven is declaring, no more. You have been marked for clarity, called to rise above confusion, and chosen to see what others miss. You are not lost. You are being redirected. Listen closely. Every notification, every mindless scroll, every sudden wave of anxiety is not random. The enemy understands that if he can steal your focus, he can delay your destiny, because a scattered mind cannot carry a sharp vision. You've wondered why you felt so tired, why your motivation fades so quickly, why peace seems so distant. It's not because you are weak, it's because your mind has been under spiritual siege. And so Heaven reminds you, according to what is revealed in the book of Romans, chapter 12, verse 2, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is the good and acceptable and perfect will of God. Take that in. Your transformation begins in the mind. God never told you to copy the world. He told you to rise above it. You have been given the ability to renew your thoughts, to cleanse your inner world from the pollution of endless comparison and fear. Every time you let His word rewire your thinking, confusion loses its grip, and peace takes its place. Right now, Heaven is restoring what distraction has stolen. Your mind is being washed clean of confusion, and divine clarity is descending. You don't need to understand everything, just breathe. You are safe in this moment. You are hearing what millions miss because you are one of the chosen ones. God is saying, this is the hour to awaken your mind. You've been feeling restless lately, haven't you? Like something inside you keeps saying, there's more. That's not restlessness, it's the sound of divine urgency. It's Heaven knocking on the door of your consciousness saying, wake up, chosen one, guard your thoughts. You are too close to the breakthrough to lose focus now. The enemy is subtle. He won't always come with destruction. Sometimes he comes with distraction. He offers you comfort instead of calling, entertainment instead of enlightenment, scrolling instead of seeking. But you are awakening. You are seeing through the illusion. You are beginning to recognize how every moment of distraction tries to drain your spiritual energy. It's time to fight back, not with anger, but with awareness. The moment you choose focus, darkness loses power. You are not helpless in this fight. You have authority. You have the spirit of clarity within you. And right now, Heaven is igniting it again. The fog is lifting. The noise is fading. You can feel peace returning to your soul. Let your mind be still. Let every racing thought bow before divine truth. You are called to guard your mind like a fortress. Every thought that enters must pass through the gates of discernment. Ask yourself, does this thought serve God's plan for me? If not, let it go. You do not have to entertain every distraction. You are not a victim of your mind, you are its keeper. Heaven is calling you to become intentional with your focus. Every minute you give to meaningless things is a minute stolen from your mission. Your calling demands clarity. Your future requires stillness. When you choose focus, you choose strength. When you guard your mind, you guard your destiny. So hear this now, you are being repositioned. God is aligning your attention with your assignment. What once distracted you will now disgust you. The things that used to drain you will lose their power. You will find joy in stillness, strength in silence, and direction in devotion. Heaven's message is simple, your focus is holy. Guard it with everything you have, because your clarity is the crown that sets you apart. If this message has stirred something in your spirit, don't let it fade. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Like this message. Leave a comment to seal your agreement. And subscribe so you never miss what heaven is releasing next. Type in the comments 444. My mind is guarded by divine focus. You are stepping into a new rhythm now, a rhythm of peace, precision, and purpose. The noise that once ruled your thoughts will no longer control you. From this moment forward, your mind is not a battlefield, it is holy ground where divine clarity reigns. The war for your mind has already begun. You may not see it with your eyes, but you feel it every morning when you wake up heavy. Every night when you try to rest and your thoughts won't stop running. The battle is invisible, but its impact is undeniable. This war is not fought with swords or shields, it's fought with attention. Every moment of your focus is currency in the spiritual realm, and heaven and darkness both want to claim it. You sense it when you try to pray and your phone buzzes, when you open your Bible and your mind drifts somewhere else, when you know what you should do, but you can't seem to stay centered long enough to do it. This is not laziness, it's warfare. The enemy knows that if he can confuse your mind, he can cloud your faith, because faith grows where focus lives. You have been trained by the world to chase everything, to absorb everything, to never sit still. But the Spirit is whispering now, be still, and know, because stillness is strength, and silence is strategy. When you slow down, you begin to notice what's really happening around you. You start to see the traps, how one negative thought leads to another, how comparison steals joy, how fear disguises itself as caution. As Jesus himself declared in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 6, verse 22, the eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. Your spiritual eyes are under attack because your vision determines your direction. If the enemy can fill your sight with distractions, you'll lose the ability to see light clearly. The goal of darkness is not always to destroy you, it's to divide your focus. Because a divided focus is a delayed destiny. Every scroll, every argument, every opinion, every subtle doubt you entertain, these are arrows aimed at your attention. The enemy doesn't need to make you sin if he can simply make you distracted. Because a distracted believer is a powerless believer. And when your focus fractures, your faith follows. You have to remember who you are. You are not a passive observer in this world. You are a soldier of light. And soldiers do not wander aimlessly, they move with precision. This is why God calls you to guard your thoughts, to take every thought captive, to be alert. Because if your mind sleeps, your spirit drifts. Your strength will not come from noise, it will come from discipline. That is why heaven keeps pressing you to separate from what drains you. Every time you choose peace over chaos, you are winning the war. Every time you silence your phone to listen to the still, small voice, you are advancing in the spirit. Every time you choose truth over comfort, you are reclaiming territory that was stolen from your focus. Don't underestimate the small moments. The war for your mind is not only fought in grand temptations, it's fought in subtle decisions. It's fought in the instant you choose whether to feed your fear or feed your faith. It's in the second you decide whether to react to offense or to respond with peace. That's where victory begins, in the hidden discipline of your inner world. The Spirit of God is training you to notice, to discern, to pause before you drift. You will begin to feel it, that gentle tug when your thoughts wander into dark territory. That sudden awareness when your peace begins to leak away. Those are not coincidences. That is the Spirit sharpening your awareness, teaching your soul to stay awake in a sleeping world. The battle for your focus will not end in a day, but the more you resist distraction, the stronger your spirit becomes. Every time you choose clarity over confusion, heaven celebrates quietly. Every time you resist the urge to escape through screens or noise, your soul becomes more anchored in truth. You will soon find that what once tempted you now bores you. What once drained you now feels foreign. That's the mark of transformation. The war for your mind isn't about losing or winning once, it's about learning to stay aligned, moment by moment, with heaven's rhythm. God is teaching you to guard your gaze, to choose what you see, to decide what you allow to echo in your thoughts. The moment you learn to control what you focus on, you control what controls you. So, stay alert. The battle is real, but so is your authority. You have been equipped with the power to choose what enters your mind and what remains. Every thought that draws you closer to peace is of God. Every thought that pulls you into chaos is not. You are learning to recognize the difference, and that discernment is your greatest weapon. Your focus is not fragile, it's holy. It's time to reclaim it. The fight for your mind is not a curse, it's confirmation that you carry something worth attacking. You are not losing your focus, you are learning to guard it with wisdom. And heaven is proud of how far you've come. You have felt it for years, the quiet tension between who you are and who the world expects you to be. You tried to blend in, to fit the mold, to silence the voice inside that said you were different. But that voice never left. Did it? It whispered through rejection, through confusion, through long nights of wondering why you couldn't seem to rest where others were comfortable. The truth is, you were never meant to. You were never ordinary. Your sensitivity was not a weakness, it was your radar. Your depth of feeling was not a flaw, it was spiritual intelligence. The reason you notice everything, feel everything, think deeply about things others overlook, is because heaven wired you differently. You were created with divine perception. But when you live in a world addicted to shallow distractions, sensitivity becomes painful. You've carried that pain quietly, thinking something was wrong with you. Yet what you call overthinking, heaven calls discernment. We are reminded through the writings of David in the book of Psalms, chapter 139, verse 14. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. Let those words sink in. You are wonderfully made, not accidentally made. not inconveniently made. Every part of your design serves divine purpose. Your empathy is not random, it's a weapon of light. Your awareness is not overreaction, it's spiritual sensitivity that detects what darkness hides. That's why the attacks against your mind have been so relentless. The enemy fears what would happen if you ever saw yourself clearly. You see, when you were younger, your uniqueness made you a target. People mocked what they didn't understand. You learned to dim your light just to survive the judgment. But light cannot pretend to be darkness forever, it burns from within. That is why confusion follows you when you try to be like everyone else. Heaven refuses to let you blend in because you were chosen to stand out. Your focus has been fractured by shame, by memories of people calling you too much, too emotional, too intense. But heaven is rewriting that identity. God says, "You are enough exactly as you are." Every emotion, every insight, every sensitivity is part of your assignment. What others dismissed as weakness is actually your greatest spiritual armor. When you walk into a room, you feel atmospheres shift. That's not imagination, it's discernment. When you get restless around certain people, it's not social anxiety, it's spiritual radar detecting misalignment. You were never made to just exist, you were designed to sense. You can't unsee what God allows you to perceive. And that's why guarding your mind is essential. The more you protect your clarity, the more heaven can use your insight for good. The enemy's goal has always been to make you doubt your design. Because if you ever believed in your own divine wiring, you'd move with unshakable confidence. But now you are awakening. You are realizing that being different is divine. You are not behind, you are set apart. You are not late, you are in training. The very tension you feel between who you've been and who you're becoming is the proof that transformation is happening. Stop apologizing for being intense. Stop shrinking to make others comfortable. The light in you was never meant to be subtle. You carry revelation in your DNA. When you guard your mind, when you stop letting the world label your sensitivity as weakness, you begin to walk in the boldness of heaven. You start to see that your difference is your distinction. God is restoring your self-view right now. He is lifting the veil of comparison from your mind and whispering, "You are my creation, handcrafted for clarity and purpose." The noise of unworthiness fades, and a quiet confidence rises. You begin to feel it, a holy stillness, a knowing that you were never broken, only hidden until the right season. And this moment is that season. So let your mind rest. Let your spirit accept what it already knows: you are chosen, unique, and irreplaceable. Heaven does not duplicate. You are an original print in the gallery of eternity. Every wound you've carried will become wisdom. Every tear will become testimony. You are not weird, you are wired for revelation. You are not too sensitive, you are spiritually tuned. The world needs the very qualities you were once ashamed of. Your uniqueness is not rebellion, it's evidence of divine purpose. Now, breathe. Let this truth settle deep. You were never ordinary. You were always extraordinary. And clarity is the crown returning to your mind. Comment below, "I know who I am." Because every time you declare identity, confusion loses territory. Type it not for the algorithm, but for alignment. Speak it so your own spirit hears it and believes again. When you write, "I know who I am," you're not just commenting, you're prophesying. You're reminding your spirit of divine truth. You are seen, chosen, and fearfully made for glory. The world is loud, but the voice of confusion is louder. It sneaks in quietly at first, through questions that sound harmless, through comparisons that seem casual, through moments of exhaustion where your guard feels low. You don't notice when it starts, but suddenly, your mind feels tangled. You second-guess what was once certain. You replay old conversations, wondering what went wrong. The spirit of confusion doesn't shout, it whispers until you start agreeing with lies. Its goal isn't to destroy you overnight. It's to drain you slowly, to make you question your worth, your direction, your discernment. It wants to scatter your focus until you can't remember what peace feels like. You've felt it before, those restless nights when your thoughts spiral, when fear feels louder than faith. That's not coincidence, that's strategy. Confusion is not random, it's warfare. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Jeremiah. Chapter 29, verse 11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. That verse isn't just comfort, it's confrontation. It exposes the lie that confusion tries to build. Because confusion says, you're lost. God says, you're led. Confusion says, you've missed it. God says, you're right on time. The spirit of confusion twists truth until anxiety feels logical, but divine clarity untwists the knot. One thread at a time. You've noticed how confusion always attacks your identity first. When the enemy can't change what you're called to do, he tries to make you doubt who you are. Because a blurred identity creates blurred direction. If you don't know who you are, you won't know where you're going. That's why confusion rarely attacks your circumstances, it attacks your confidence. Think about how it moves. It feeds you half-truths. Maybe you heard God wrong. Maybe this isn't your season. Maybe you're not good enough. It sounds cautious, even rational. But beneath it lies fear. The spirit of confusion knows that if it can replace conviction with caution, you'll pause long enough to miss your moment. But heaven never speaks from fear. Heaven speaks from faith. To unmask confusion, you must first slow down, because confusion thrives in hurry. It multiplies in chaos. It feeds on your need to have answers now. But clarity rarely comes through panic. It comes through peace. When your mind races, truth waits. When you become still, truth speaks. You can't fight confusion by thinking harder. You fight it by surrendering deeper. You stop demanding explanation and start seeking revelation. You begin to ask, God, what are you showing me through this fog? Because sometimes the fog isn't punishment, it's protection. It forces you to depend on direction instead of sight. When you rest in that truth, something powerful happens. The noise begins to separate. You start to recognize which voices are heaven's and which are not. The voice of confusion always feels urgent, heavy, anxious. The voice of clarity feels still, light, calm. The difference is distinct once you've tasted peace. Sometimes, confusion is just clutter, too many voices, too much input, too little silence. You can't expect to hear God clearly when your mind is filled with everything else. That's why heaven keeps calling you to simplify, to clean your mental space so divine thoughts can breathe again. And here's the beauty: every time you choose peace, confusion loses power. You don't have to know everything. You just have to know who leads you. You don't have to fix every detail. You just have to trust that clarity is coming. Confusion cannot survive where trust lives, because trust anchors you even when vision feels blurry. You may not realize it, but confusion has been teaching you something valuable. It's been training your discernment. Every false voice you've encountered has sharpened your ability to recognize the real one. Every moment of mental chaos has built spiritual sensitivity. You're not weaker from confusion, you're wiser. Heaven never wastes warfare. Even the fog that frightened you is forming focus inside you. You're learning what peace sounds like by hearing its counterfeit. You're discovering that true clarity is not the absence of questions, it's the presence of confidence. So when confusion comes again, and it will, you'll meet it differently. You won't panic. You'll pause. You'll remember that your mind is not a playground for lies, but a sanctuary for truth. You'll recognize the tactics. You'll say, "No, I've seen this before. I know this voice. I know my God." And just like that, the fog will begin to clear. This is how heaven trains its chosen ones, not by removing every storm, but by teaching you to see through it. You are learning to walk by revelation, not reaction. You are learning to trust even when the map is missing. And in that trust, the spirit of confusion loses every weapon it ever had. Because once you know who you are, confusion can't convince you otherwise. Once you've heard the real voice, the fake one can't deceive you again. You are not confused, you are being clarified. The fog is not your failure, it's your formation. And when you finally step out of it, you'll look back and realize you are starting to see it now. The world is loud on purpose. Every sound, every screen, every image pulls at you like invisible hands, begging for your attention. You live in a generation where silence feels like emptiness and focus feels like a fight. But heaven whispers through the noise. Look up. Lift your gaze higher. Don't let the battlefield of attention steal your peace. The truth is, focus has become the new faith test. Not because God is hiding from you, but because clarity has become sacred in a distracted world. The enemy no longer has to destroy believers, he just needs to distract them. If he can keep your eyes wandering, your heart divided, and your mind scattered, he doesn't have to touch your body. He has already touched your destiny. The Word of God declares in the book of Proverbs, chapter 4, verse 25, "Let your eyes look straight ahead, fix your gaze directly before you." This is heaven's instruction manual for your generation. Fix your gaze. In other words, stop scattering your attention across 1,000 meaningless things. You are not meant to be consumed by constant motion. You are called to move with direction. Every distraction is a detour, and every detour costs time that destiny cannot afford. You felt that drain before, the way endless scrolling leaves you emptier. How you can be surrounded by stimulation yet feel spiritually starved. That's because your soul doesn't feed on noise, it feeds on stillness. It doesn't grow through speed, it grows through presence. And presence cannot coexist with distraction. You were never meant to survive off fragments of focus. God designed your mind to carry clarity like a lamp, steady and bright. When you live scattered, you dim that light. When you live focused, you burn with purpose. That's why the Spirit keeps nudging you to slow down, to reclaim the moments that have been stolen by noise. Every time you pause to breathe, heaven celebrates. Every time you turn down the volume of chaos to listen for the whisper, heaven leans closer. You are learning that attention is worship. What you fix your eyes on becomes what you magnify, and what you magnify becomes what you serve. So, if you spend your focus on fear, fear grows. But if you spend your focus on faith, light expands. The world wants your reaction. God wants your reflection. The world wants you fast. Heaven wants you faithful. The battle for your focus is not about controlling what you see. It's about deciding who you become through what you see. You are learning that your focus builds your future, brick by invisible brick. Look around you, so many voices, so many opinions, but not all voices carry truth. Some carry noise dressed as wisdom. Some carry distraction disguised as urgency. You must learn to filter through the spirit, to ask quietly, does this align with peace? If it doesn't belong in your mind. You are awakening to a new level of awareness. Every choice of attention is sacred. Every moment of stillness is warfare. You are training your mind to live with intention again, to see, to feel, to breathe without being dragged by the tide of distraction. You are learning that peace is not found in the absence of activity, but in the presence of clarity. And here's the beauty of it. You don't fight this war by force. You win it by flow. You win it when you choose to direct your gaze toward what gives life. You win it when you create space for light to speak again. So, when you reach the end of this message, pause. Don't rush to the next thing. Let this moment breathe inside you. Let it settle into the quiet corners of your mind where noise once lived. You'll feel it, the gentle peace, the whisper that says, you are where you are meant to be. And when that stillness comes, let it move you not out of pressure, but out of peace. If these words have found a home in your heart, let your spirit respond in its own way. Maybe it's a quiet act, like a candle being lit in the dark, a flame of connection. Maybe you'll choose to like this as a symbol that light has reached you. Maybe you'll share it, not out of duty, but as one torch passing fire to another. And maybe, just maybe, you'll subscribe not as a follower, but as a keeper of clarity, joining others who refuse to let their flame go out. Because every small gesture of agreement is more than an algorithm, it's an act of alignment. It says, I choose light. I choose peace. I choose focus. Let it be your choice. Let it be beautiful. And as you do, imagine heaven watching 1,000 unseen stars bowing in quiet agreement. Your single act of focus becomes a spark, lighting pathways through the darkness for others to follow. There is power in silence, not the kind of silence that feels like emptiness, but the kind that feels like peace, the kind that reminds you heaven is near. The world keeps shouting for your attention, but heaven whispers, come away. Because clarity is not found in the crowd, it's found in the quiet. The renewal of your mind begins in secret places, where no one claps for you, where no one sees. But heaven takes note of every moment you choose stillness over noise. You've been surrounded by motion for so long that stillness feels strange. But the Spirit is calling you to return to the secret room, to rebuild what distraction tried to destroy your connection with the source. Every prophet, every person of purpose learned the same truth. Before God uses you publicly, He renews you privately. What you do in silence shapes what heaven releases through you in sight. Heaven speaks clearly through the words in the book of Isaiah, chapter 30. Verse 15. In repentance and rest is your salvation. In quietness and trust is your strength. That is your invitation. Strength is not in striving, it's in surrender. Renewal does not come from running harder, it comes from returning home. You renew your mind when you stop running long enough for heaven to pour clarity into you again. So step away for a moment. Turn off the noise. Close the door. And breathe. Don't look for a feeling, just be. In stillness, heaven rearranges your thoughts. You begin to hear again. Not the voice of fear, but the gentle whisper of truth. That's where confusion dies. That's where peace is born. Renewal happens when you choose to sit with God instead of searching for validation. When you open your Bible not to impress anyone, but because your spirit is thirsty. When you whisper a prayer, not as performance, but as conversation. That's where the transformation begins, not on the stage of the world, but in the hidden room of the heart. Distraction thrives on visibility. Clarity thrives on intimacy. The enemy wants you loud, restless, performing, but God calls you still, grounded, listening, because in silence, the Spirit can speak what words could never explain. In quietness, you remember who you are. When you separate from the noise, you begin to see life through new eyes. You start to recognize which thoughts are yours and which are not. You begin to notice how peace always speaks softly, while chaos always shouts. That awareness is renewal. That separation is healing. This is the secret. The stronger your stillness, the sharper your discernment. When you spend time in the secret place, heaven tunes your frequency to divine clarity. You stop reacting and start responding. You stop panicking and start perceiving. The storms outside may rage, but inside you, there is calm. And when your mind is renewed, your focus becomes unbreakable. You no longer chase what others chase. You no longer fear missing out because you've already found what matters. The noise no longer shakes you because your spirit has learned the sound of peace. Renewal is not a one-time event, it's a daily choice. Each time you choose stillness, you declare, "My mind belongs to heaven." Each time you rest, you resist the pull of chaos. And each time you listen, you realign with purpose. So don't be afraid to pull back. Don't feel guilty for protecting your peace. You're not isolating, you're incubating. You're being refilled with clarity so that when you speak, your words carry power. When you move, your steps carry direction. When you act, your decisions echo heaven. Right now, heaven watches you in the quiet and smiles. Renewal is happening. The noise that used to rule you is losing power. You are being reset, restored, and refined. And as you feel that gentle calm rising again, seal this moment with agreement. Comment the number 333 below a prophetic act of alignment, representing divine order and the Trinity of clarity, peace, and power returning to your mind, not for the algorithm, but for heaven's witness. For every time you declare alignment, your focus strengthens, your peace multiplies, and your purpose grows clearer. When you write 333, you're not typing a number, you're marking a moment. It's a whisper from your spirit saying, "I'm returning to divine order." It's a symbol of alignment, of your heart, mind, and purpose stepping back into the rhythm of heaven. Each number becomes a declaration. The first stands for peace reclaimed, the second for clarity restored, the third for power renewed. You are not responding to emotion, you're responding to revelation. Heaven sees it. Angels record it. And in the unseen realm, the act of agreement opens doors that distraction once kept closed. So let your comment be more than digital ink, let it be a covenant. When you write 333, you're declaring, my focus is sacred, my mind is guarded, and my spirit is awake. This is how chosen ones move quietly, intentionally, and with purpose that shakes eternity. There comes a moment when you must confront what has lived too long in your mind. The thoughts that replay like broken records. The fears that whisper, you'll never change. The guilt that builds invisible walls around your hope. These are not yours to carry anymore. Breaking mental strongholds is not about shouting louder. It's about listening deeper. It's not about denying what hurt you. It's about refusing to let it define you. You have believed too many lies spoken over your life. Lies that said you're too late, too broken, too unstable to walk in clarity again. But heaven is reminding you now, truth still has authority. Every lie that has lived rent-free in your thoughts must now bow to the name of truth. The stronghold begins to crumble the moment you question it. The Spirit spoke through the Apostle Paul in the second letter to the Corinthians. Chapter 10, verse 5. We demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God. And we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. That's your weapon. Not rage, not denial, but truth made active. You have the divine right to take captive every thought. You are not powerless in your own mind. You are not a prisoner of fear. You are its warden. And now, you stand in authority. Strongholds are built from repetition. Every time a lie is believed, a brick is laid. Every time a fear is rehearsed, the walls grow thicker. But when you start to speak truth into those same spaces, every false brick begins to crack. The word of God becomes your hammer, your weapon, your way out. You don't fight thoughts with more thoughts. You fight them with the voice of truth. You've been told that strength means never struggling. But heaven says strength means standing while you struggle. Breaking strongholds takes time, grace, and persistence. It's the art of unlearning fear, shame, unworthiness. Each layer you peel back reveals more of who you truly are beneath the debris of deception. You might remember moments when your own mind turned against you, when overthinking became a storm you couldn't quiet. But what if I told you that storm was not your enemy? It was your awakening, because storms shake loose what no longer belongs. They force you to confront what you've ignored. They clear the air so you can see the horizon again. There's something sacred about surrendering what has held you captive for too long. When you stop fighting the storm and start inviting truth into it, peace begins to replace panic. The mind that once waged war against you begins to serve you again. That's renewal. That's freedom. Breaking strongholds means you start choosing your thoughts instead of chasing them. You begin to notice when fear knocks on your mental door and you simply don't answer. You start to catch the whispers of doubt before they grow into narratives of defeat. You learn to pause before spiraling, to breathe before reacting, to declare truth before you drown in assumptions. And slowly, peace begins to take form, not loud, not dramatic, but steady like morning light creeping into a dark room. It doesn't rush, it simply fills every space available. That's how heaven heals your mind. Not through lightning, but through light. When the light of truth enters, lies lose their authority. You'll notice it. The things that once triggered anxiety no longer control you. The memories that once held power now fade into lessons. The people who once hurt you no longer define your worth. That's not amnesia, that's authority. That's what happens when you start thinking with heaven's vocabulary instead of hell's commentary. Strongholds fall one thought at a time. Each time you replace "I can't" with "God can," another wall crumbles. Each time you speak peace instead of panic, another chain breaks. Each time you choose silence instead of self-sabotage, you win another battle no one sees. That's where transformation happens, in the quiet victories of your mind. Heaven never expected perfection from you, only participation. God's grace doesn't demand that you instantly be whole. It invites you to walk toward wholeness. Even if you stumble, even if you struggle, every step you take toward truth is a step away from bondage. You are not your thoughts. You are the watcher, the gatekeeper, the guardian of what enters. And now, heaven is reminding you, your mind is sacred territory. Guard it, heal it, and fill it with light. Because every stronghold that falls in your mind releases freedom into your future. The battle is real, but so is your authority. You've been given power not just to survive the storm, but to silence it. You are walking out of mental prisons with keys called awareness, faith, and truth. You are not losing your mind, you are reclaiming it. And as you rise from the ruins of old thoughts, clarity greets you like dawn breaking through fog, proof that even the darkest mind can still remember the language of light. There is a moment when your spiritual vision begins to clear, and you realize the fog wasn't permanent, it was preparation. Confusion may have clouded your sight for a season, but it never destroyed your destiny. It only trained you to value what clarity feels like. The same eyes that once looked through pain are now awakening to purpose. This is what it means to have prophetic vision restored. You are beginning to see, not just with your natural sight, but with the eyes of the Spirit. Where others see obstacles, you are learning to see orchestration. Where others see delay, you are discerning divine timing. Heaven is teaching you that what looked like chaos was actually choreography. What felt like loss was repositioning. You are realizing that the steps you thought were backwards were actually the beginning of a deeper alignment. The voice of God thundered in the book of Exodus, chapter 14, verse 13, "Do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today." That command still echoes through eternity. Stand firm and see. It doesn't say run or fight or force. It says see, because prophetic vision is not about striving, it's about perceiving. It's not something you create, it's something you allow. When your spirit becomes still, your sight becomes sharp. The world trains you to react to what's visible, but heaven trains you to discern what's invisible. You are being taught to see patterns behind pain, to notice purpose behind closed doors. What seemed like rejection was actually redirection. What you thought was delay was divine protection. Heaven hides what it values most until you're mature enough to see it clearly. There was a time when you begged God for answers, but now you understand that clarity is not something given, it's something grown. You earn sight through surrender. You see more when you trust more. When your heart stops demanding and starts discerning, your eyes open wider than ever before. You've felt that stirring lately, haven't you? The sense that something deeper is happening behind the scenes. That's because heaven is shifting your perspective. You're no longer seeing from the ground, you're seeing from above. Like a bird rising through clouds, you're beginning to understand why the view felt blurry before. You had to ascend before you could perceive. When prophetic vision returns, everything changes. Suddenly, what once overwhelmed you now makes sense. The people who left, the doors that closed, the silence that lingered, all of it becomes part of a pattern that heaven weaved. You start to realize that your life has been in divine sequence all along, even when it didn't feel like it. There's something holy about hindsight. God allows you to look back, not to relive the pain, but to recognize the purpose. Every broken moment becomes a piece of revelation. You begin to understand that clarity is not just seeing the future, it's also seeing your past through grace. Prophetic vision doesn't mean predicting what happens next, it means perceiving what God is doing now. You begin to sense when to move and when to wait, when to speak and when to be silent. You start to recognize divine rhythm, heaven's pulse, guiding your steps like music only you can hear. This restored vision will change the way you walk through storms, because now you understand that even in chaos, there's choreography. You won't panic when plans shift, because you've learned that detours are divine in disguise. You won't doubt when doors close, because you've seen enough to know closed doors are also protection. And with each revelation, your confidence grows not in yourself, but in the one who sees before you see. You start trusting that every unseen thread is being woven for good. The fog that once frightened you becomes familiar, because now you know what waits beyond it, light. Your eyes are no longer blind with fear, they're blessed with foresight. You're starting to notice signs, divine whispers, subtle alignments that once felt random. What used to look like coincidence now looks like confirmation. Heaven is rebuilding your sight, not so you can control your story, but so you can walk through it with faith. And as your prophetic vision strengthens, so does your peace. You no longer need to see everything to believe. You've learned that believing allows you to see. Faith becomes your new sight, and trust becomes your new clarity. You're no longer walking in darkness, you're walking in direction. The same eyes that once searched for proof now rest in promise. What was blurred has become beautiful. Heaven's handwriting is clear again, and you finally understand the vision was never lost. It was only waiting for you to be ready to see. Vision restored is more than seeing clearly, it's trusting completely. You no longer chase what's ahead, you walk in rhythm with the one who already knows. Now, clarity becomes companionship. Every step is guided by unseen light. Every pause becomes purpose, and every silence holds the voice of divine direction within it. There comes a realization: the mind you guard is not just a battlefield, it is a gate. Every thought that enters it either builds your temple or breaks it. You have been called to be a gatekeeper, a guardian of the unseen, one who decides what has permission to dwell inside. What you allow in your thoughts will eventually manifest in your life. The gates of your mind are sacred, and heaven has assigned you to stand watch. You've felt the weight of this calling before. The uneasiness when negativity tries to settle in. The heaviness after spending time in the wrong atmosphere. These are spiritual alarms. Your spirit knows when something doesn't belong, yet the world teaches you to ignore that instinct. to entertain every thought as if it's harmless. But not every thought is neutral. Some carry peace, while others carry poison, as was spoken in the sacred texts of old. In the book of Proverbs, chapter 4, verse 23, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." The heart and the mind are connected. What sits in your mind eventually shapes your heart, and what lives in your heart directs your actions. That's why heaven calls you to discern, not to judge others, but to protect your inner sanctuary. Think of your mind as a gate on a city wall. Some gates must remain open, like gratitude, faith, and peace. Others must stay locked, like fear, resentment, and self-pity. You decide who enters. You decide what stays. You decide when to shut the door. You are not helpless in this battle. You are the keeper of your own light. You've allowed too many voices to occupy your inner world. The opinions of others, the noise of comparison, the echo of old memories. They've all tried to sit where peace belongs. But heaven is calling you to cleanse the gates again. Every word you allow into your mind is a seed. Guard it well, because even thoughts that seem small can grow into trees that bear fruit or thorns. To be a gatekeeper means learning to pause before permission. When a thought enters, ask, does this align with truth? Does this carry light or darkness? Does this strengthen or drain me? If the answer doesn't lead to peace, you close the gate. You don't entertain what threatens your clarity. You don't host what dishonors your calling. The world will call you distant for doing this. But distance from distraction is not isolation, it's insulation. It's protection for your purpose. Some conversations, some habits, some patterns cannot cross the gates anymore. You are not rejecting people, you are rejecting confusion. You are creating sacred boundaries so your spirit can breathe again. You'll start to notice how everything changes when you guard your mind intentionally. Peace will stay longer. Clarity will flow easier. You will hear God more clearly because the static of chaos will no longer drown his whisper. You'll find that protecting your mind isn't about hiding, it's about hosting heaven. When you live as a gatekeeper, your focus becomes sharper. You discern quickly when a word carries truth or manipulation, when a situation carries purpose or distraction. That's spiritual maturity, the ability to sense the unseen. And the more you practice it, the stronger your peace becomes. You'll realize that not everything deserves a reaction. Not every comment needs a response. Not every battle is yours to fight. Your silence becomes your shield. Your focus becomes your fortress. Heaven trusts you with this gatekeeping assignment because your clarity influences more than just you. The people around you feel your atmosphere. When your mind is guarded, your presence becomes peaceful. When your spirit is steady, your words carry healing. You become a walking sanctuary in a world addicted to chaos. So tonight, as you reflect, ask yourself, what gates have been left unguarded? What thoughts have been sneaking in unchecked? And then, gently but firmly, begin to shut the doors that do not serve the light within you. You were never meant to live unguarded. You were meant to live grounded, discerning, and unshakably clear. You are not paranoid, you are prophetic. You are not anxious, you are aware. The very act of guarding your mind is worship. It's saying, God, my thoughts belong to you. Let that awareness settle deep into your spirit. You are the gatekeeper. What you protect today will shape the peace you live in tomorrow. comment below, "I guard my gates." Because when you declare it, heaven hears it. You're not just writing words, you're taking spiritual authority, sealing your territory, and reclaiming the borders of your peace. When you type, "I guard my gates," you're declaring that your mind is no longer open to chaos. It's a sacred vow to protect your focus, peace, and divine clarity. This simple act isn't for show, it's spiritual strategy. Every word you release builds a wall of truth around your thoughts, sealing your atmosphere in heavenly order and unshakable calm. There is a quiet moment in every believer's journey when disobedience no longer looks like rebellion, it looks like distraction. You've seen it before, the days when you knew what God was whispering, yet you delayed. The nudges you felt but ignored. The promptings you silenced beneath the hum of, "I'll do it later." But later is where destinies die. When God calls for focus, delay becomes disobedience. Not because he is impatient, but because timing is sacred. Heaven operates in rhythm, not routine. When your attention drifts, divine timing shifts. Heaven waits, but purpose pauses. You wonder why doors don't open, why peace feels far. But sometimes it's because obedience was postponed. The apostle reminds us in his letter to the Ephesians, chapter 5, verse 15 through 16. Be very careful, then, how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity, because the days are evil. That is not a warning of fear, it's a call to awareness. Every moment carries eternal weight. Every decision either draws you closer to clarity or drifts you toward confusion. When you delay obedience, you dilute direction. Heaven cannot steer what refuses to move. You've been called to live alert, intentional, aligned. But distraction is seductive. It disguises itself as harmless delay. Yet underneath it lies spiritual paralysis. The enemy doesn't need you to rebel, he just needs you to hesitate. Every time you say tomorrow, the flame of purpose flickers weaker. But when you choose now, heaven leans forward. When distraction becomes disobedience, clarity grows dim. You start to question what was once clear, to doubt what you once discerned. You wonder if the voice of God grew silent. But truthfully, it's your focus that grew faint. God hasn't stopped speaking, you've just stopped stilling yourself long enough to hear. There's mercy in this realization. It's not condemnation, it's correction. Heaven is saying, you can begin again. Because clarity returns the moment obedience resumes. Focus flows when surrender is chosen. When you decide to act in alignment instead of delay and doubt, the fog begins to lift, and your path becomes visible again. You've been here before, standing between peace and procrastination, knowing which one to choose. This time, let obedience win. Let your focus become worship again. Don't overthink what's next. Just take the step that heaven has already lit for you. Every act of obedience sharpens your vision, strengthens your peace, and shortens the distance between where you are and where you are meant to be. Sometimes, obedience doesn't feel dramatic, it feels quiet. It looks like closing the app when you feel that tug. It sounds like saying no when your spirit says, not now. It's choosing stillness when everyone else chooses speed. That's how heaven tests who can be trusted with focus, by observing who obeys the whisper. Disobedience disguises itself as delay. but delay costs destiny. Every postponed decision builds distance between you and peace. But obedience, real obedience, brings you closer to clarity. It's not about perfection, it's about participation. Heaven doesn't expect flawless steps, just faithful ones. You don't have to fix everything at once. You just have to return to what you already know. The moment you act on what's been revealed, heaven releases what's been withheld. The rhythm returns, the confusion breaks, the silence ends. And when you feel that shift, pause. Don't rush from it. Let this truth sink. Deep obedience is the language of love, and focus is its accent. You were created to hear clearly, to act quickly, to live intentionally. That's your divine design. Now, if this message stirs something inside you, let it breathe. Maybe you'll choose to like this moment not as approval, but as an amen from your spirit. Maybe you'll share it like a lantern passed through the dark, guiding someone else back to obedience. And maybe you'll subscribe not as routine, but as remembrance. A symbolic act of staying close to the source that keeps your flame alive. It's not pressure, it's poetry. The way obedience feels when done in love. The way peace flows when focus is honored. The way light spreads when one soul chooses to act. Quietly, but completely. Because when you align your focus with heaven's rhythm, even your silence becomes a song, and your surrender becomes strength. When you choose obedience over delay, heaven writes your yes into eternity. Every act of focus becomes a thread in the tapestry of divine timing, each small decision weaving glory through your ordinary days. Obedience is not chains, it's choreography. It teaches your soul the rhythm of heaven's music, where every step taken in faith moves perfectly with the unseen pulse of grace. And as you walk in that rhythm, peace returns like sunrise after a long night, steady, quiet, undeniable. The light doesn't shout, it simply stays, guiding your next step with effortless clarity. Discipline is not punishment, it is protection. It is heaven's way of keeping your focus strong and your spirit steady. Many have prayed for clarity while avoiding the structure that sustains it. But divine focus is never born in chaos, it grows in order. The power of divine discipline is not about control, it's about consecration. It is the practice of protecting what heaven has planted. You've been taught to think of discipline as denial. But in truth, it is design. Every boundary you build becomes a bridge toward purpose. Every no you speak to distraction becomes a yes to destiny. Discipline is not what limits your freedom, it is what preserves it. Without it, focus leaks. Without focus, peace fades. As the book of Hebrews, chapter 12, verse 11 declares, "No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it." This verse reveals the hidden side of clarity. It is forged in consistency. You cannot live spiritually sharp on mental laziness. Discipline turns fleeting conviction into lasting transformation. It turns spiritual moments into spiritual momentum. Think of discipline as spiritual architecture. It builds structure around revelation so it can stand through storms. God doesn't just give you insight, He teaches you how to sustain it. Every routine that guards your peace, every early morning of prayer, every night spent in reflection is a brick in the temple of focus. The undisciplined mind becomes a playground for distraction. It drifts. It doubts. It decays. But the disciplined mind becomes a garden. It receives rain and sun in balance. It weeds out what doesn't belong and grows fruit that lasts. Heaven does not bless busyness, it blesses order. You've seen what happens when routine breaks, how your spirit feels scattered, how anxiety slips in quietly. That's not coincidence, that's cause and effect. The spirit thrives in rhythm. Your mind finds peace in pattern. Even the sunrise obeys timing. Even the tide keeps its appointed flow. Heaven has always worked through order. And you, as a chosen one, are called to do the same. Discipline does not mean perfection. It means presence. It means showing up even when you don't feel inspired, praying even when your emotions disagree, focusing even when distractions scream. It's the act of saying, I will be faithful to the process even when I can't see the promise. Divine discipline is not about rules, it's about reverence. It's about honoring the gift of time, attention, and focus that heaven has entrusted to you. Every disciplined moment is an offering, a declaration that says, God, I value what you've given me enough to protect it. When you practice discipline, you begin to notice the subtle shifts. Chaos loses its voice. Clarity grows louder. The same tasks that once felt draining begin to feel divine. Because discipline doesn't just change your schedule, it changes your spirit. It aligns your inner rhythm with heaven's timing. And yes, it's uncomfortable at first. Growth always is. The mind resists what stretches it. The flesh resists what strengthens it. But over time, what once felt heavy begins to feel holy. You'll find beauty in the boundaries. You'll begin to crave the structure that keeps your peace intact. The power of divine discipline is that it makes you dependable in a world addicted to distraction. When the winds of confusion blow, you remain unshaken because your roots run deep. When others lose focus, you stay steady because you've built muscle memory for clarity. Even small disciplines like pausing before reacting, choosing silence over chaos, or turning to scripture instead of screens create ripples in your spirit. These are not small acts, they are seeds of mastery. Heaven can trust a disciplined mind because it has proven faithful with focus. And soon, you'll see that discipline was never a burden, it was a doorway. It was the way God trained you to handle greater clarity, heavier purpose, deeper peace. The habits that once felt simple become sacred. The routines that once felt repetitive become rivers of revelation. So, when life feels rigid, remember, it's not restriction, it's refinement. Heaven is teaching you rhythm, endurance, trust. The process is shaping you into someone who can sustain the clarity you prayed for. You are being trained by truth itself. And though discipline begins as duty, it ends as delight. Because one day you'll look back and realize the habits that once felt hard became the very structure that carried your purpose. You'll see that divine discipline was not God's way of withholding joy. It was His way of preparing you to live in it fully. Discipline, then, becomes a language, the quiet conversation between your soul and heaven that says, I am ready. It's how focus learns to breathe, and peace learns to stay. And when others rush without rhythm, you'll move with grace, anchored and aware. What feels like routine to them will feel like worship to you, steady, sacred, unstoppable. There are moments when heaven doesn't ask for action, it asks for acknowledgement. Times when words are not enough, and the Spirit must speak through symbols. Prophetic numbers are one of heaven's oldest languages, carrying meaning beyond the limits of language. They appear like divine echoes, gentle confirmations that you are aligned with God's rhythm. When you begin to notice them, it's not superstition, it's synchronization. Heaven is showing you that even numbers can preach. Even patterns can prophesy. Each sequence is a reminder that order still exists in a chaotic world, that God is still orchestrating even when you can't see the score. As Jesus himself declared in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 10, verse 30, "Even the very hairs of your head are all numbered. You are seen in every detail." Heaven counts not just your days, but your thoughts, your breaths, your tears. Nothing is random. Everything has rhythm. That's why, when numbers repeat, they aren't coincidence, they're conversation. The prophetic number you are being drawn to now carries the vibration of focus restored, clarity renewed, and divine insight awakened. It represents the alignment of thought, spirit, and vision. It's heaven's way of saying, you are in sync again. For some, these numbers appear when they are about to shift seasons. For others, they show up as reminders not to drift. Heaven uses what you notice to speak what you need. You are not chasing signs. Signs are chasing you. Because heaven always meets you where your focus lives. Prophetic numbers remind you to pause, to recognize that your steps are not random. They say, you are where you need to be. They realign you when confusion tries to pull you off course. They invite you to slow down long enough to recognize divine fingerprints in ordinary places. This is not about calculation, it's about confirmation. Heaven doesn't ask you to worship numbers, it asks you to worship through awareness. Because when you acknowledge what God is showing, you strengthen the bridge between the seen and unseen. You have felt it before, those gentle moments when a number follows you through the day. When your spirit stirs each time it appears. That's not chance. That's heaven whispering, stay awake. It's the Holy Spirit using rhythm to bring you back into remembrance. So now, in this moment of clarity, heaven invites you to participate in the conversation, to make a prophetic declaration that seals your alignment, a number that represents the unity between your thoughts, your spirit, and divine purpose. Comment 222 below, heaven's symbol of divine partnership and spiritual agreement. It is the number of harmony, of two becoming one, heaven with earth, spirit with truth, focus with faith. When you type it, you are declaring that your mind and your mission are now in sync with heaven's order. Do it not as a ritual, but as recognition, because every act of acknowledgement builds spiritual awareness. It says, I'm listening, I'm aligned, I see what you're showing me. And that's all heaven has ever wanted to be seen in the small things. You are not simply commenting, you are responding to revelation. 222 is your reminder that clarity is not an accident, it's alignment. That even in uncertainty, heaven is counting your steps and guiding your gaze. So let your spirit whisper it softly. Let your fingers type it freely. And let your heart understand it deeply. Every repetition of 222 becomes a rhythm of remembrance, a steady heartbeat between your soul and the divine. And as you do, peace will rise quietly within you, because in that small act, Heaven knows you're paying attention again. You're awake. You're aligned. You're home. When you write 222, you're not just leaving a comment, you're stepping into agreement. It's the whisper of your soul saying, I choose alignment. Each digit becomes a doorway, inviting the presence of peace back into your focus, your decisions, your daily rhythm. The first two represents divine partnership, your spirit agreeing with heaven's plan even when your mind doesn't fully understand it. The second two symbolizes balance, reminding you that clarity flows not from chaos, but from harmony between surrender and strength. The third two seals it as confirmation what God began, He will finish. When you type 222, you're telling heaven, I trust the process even in the unseen. This is not algorithmic engagement, it's sacred acknowledgement. A silent but powerful amen written in numbers instead of words. It's how chosen ones mark moments of alignment. How seekers of peace build altars in digital spaces. When your heart agrees, heaven responds. When you type 222, you're saying, my focus is not random, it is redeemed. Let that awareness stay with you long after the screen fades, echoing softly in your spirit as a reminder, heaven counts everything, even this moment. And as you breathe after typing 222, feel the atmosphere shift. A quiet assurance settles, heaven heard you. Alignment isn't coming, it's already here, alive within your stillness. There is a subtle difference between the noise of doubt and the whisper of God. But learning to tell them apart changes everything. Doubt is loud, it demands attention. It feeds on urgency, fear, and insecurity. It fills the silence with questions that sound reasonable but carry poison at their root. God's whisper, by contrast, is quiet but unshakable. It does not beg to be heard. It simply waits to be recognized. The noise of doubt often arrives first. It rushes in like a storm, fast and convincing. It sounds like logic, but it lacks peace. It says, you must act now, while the whisper of God says, wait and trust. Doubt loves panic, God loves patience. Doubt stirs anxiety, God stills it. You've heard both voices, sometimes in the same moment, and you've wondered which one was real. The answer is always found in peace. It is written in the Gospel of John, chapter 10, verse 27, my sheep listen to my voice, I know them, and they follow me. That verse is the foundation of discernment. God's voice carries familiarity. It feels like home. Even when it convicts, it comforts. It does not tear down your worth. It calls you higher. Doubt depletes. The whisper of God restores. Doubt focuses on what's missing. God focuses on what's possible. Learning to separate the two requires stillness. The spirit never competes with noise. If your mind is crowded, his whisper will seem distant, not because he's silent, but because distraction is loud. You cannot hear a gentle breeze in a storm of overthinking. That's why heaven calls you to quiet your inner world, to create space for subtlety, to tune your ear to peace. Doubt speaks to your fear. God speaks to your faith. Doubt magnifies your weakness. God magnifies His strength within you. When you hear a voice that makes you anxious, it is not heaven's. When you feel a prompting that steadies your heart, even in uncertainty, that's how you know it's Him. The whisper of God rarely comes with spectacle. It doesn't always sound supernatural. Sometimes it's a thought that keeps returning, a scripture that won't leave your mind, a sense of calm that arrives without reason. That's how heaven moves, in subtle confirmations that only the sensitive notice. The whisper never shouts. It simply repeats truth until your spirit remembers. When doubt speaks, it tries to rush you. It says, "Decide now," before it's too late. But God's whisper carries timelessness. It waits because it owns time. You never need to fear missing God's voice. He knows how to find you. He knows how to reach you when your heart is ready, to recognize His whisper. Watch for peace. The Spirit of God will never pressure you into panic. His words may challenge, but they won't confuse. They may expose, but they won't shame. God does not manipulate through guilt. He motivates through grace. The noise of doubt often disguises itself as reason. It uses partial truth to distract from full revelation. But you can always test it by its fruit. What does it leave behind in your spirit? Fear or faith, restlessness or reassurance? Every word from heaven leaves peace as a residue. And here's what few understand. God's whisper is not fragile, it's focused. It cuts through storms with surgical precision. You don't need to amplify it, you need to attune to it. The same voice that spoke creation into being can still reach you in your quietest despair. It's not that God is far, it's that He speaks in frequencies faith can hear. You'll begin to notice patterns, how every time you doubt, peace disappears. How every time you trust, clarity returns. The more you obey the whisper, the louder it becomes. It's not that God shouts, it's that you grow better at listening. Sensitivity is spiritual maturity. There will be seasons when the noise of doubt grows loud again. That doesn't mean you've failed, it means you're being refined. God uses contrast to strengthen discernment. You cannot value peace until you've felt confusion. You cannot recognize truth until you've battled lies. This is part of the training heaven teaching you to navigate by inner stillness. So don't chase voices. Seek presence. The whisper of God will always wait for you in the same place, peace. That's where you'll find Him again and again. And when you do, you'll realize something sacred. The whisper was never competing with the noise. It was waiting for you to quiet down. Because peace doesn't fight to be heard, it simply remains, confident that when you are ready, you'll remember its sound. The whisper of God does not fade with distance, it grows with devotion. Every moment you choose stillness. The volume of heaven increases inside your awareness, guiding gently, never forcing. And when you finally trust that quiet tone, doubt loses its vocabulary. You begin to walk by inner assurance, where silence speaks louder than every storm shouting around you. Peace is not the absence of pressure, it is the presence of order. It is the quiet alignment between your heart and heaven. The sound of your spirit breathing again after the noise. Heaven's strategy for mental peace has always been simple yet profound. It is to reintroduce you to divine rhythm. The mind finds chaos when it forgets rhythm, but it finds rest when it returns to the tempo of grace. The world teaches you to chase stillness as if it's something outside yourself. But true peace is not a destination, it's a discipline. It begins when you stop running from silence and start embracing it. Because peace doesn't come from escaping the world, it comes from being anchored within it. According to what is revealed in the book of Philippians, chapter 4, verse 7, "And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." That peace is not intellectual, it's spiritual. It doesn't depend on circumstance, it depends on connection. The same storm that breaks another can't touch you when your inner world is still. You were never promised a life without storms. Only a soul that can stand through them. That's the power of divine peace. It doesn't remove pressure, it redefines it. Heaven's strategy begins with surrender. You cannot receive peace while clutching control. Anxiety thrives where surrender ends. When you insist on understanding everything, you invite chaos to sit where clarity should live. Peace comes when you release your need to know and choose to trust instead. The Spirit teaches peace through rhythm. Inhale, trust. Exhale, tension. Every breath becomes a prayer. Every pause becomes worship. Heaven uses simplicity to reset your mind. You're not asked to perform, you're invited to be. That's why peace feels familiar when it arrives. It's the state your soul was created to live in. Mental peace is not found through escape, but through engagement. You don't silence the mind by avoiding life. You silence it by bringing every thought into divine order. When your thoughts submit to truth, anxiety has nowhere to hide. Peace is not passive, it's an active authority over your inner world. Heaven has always had strategies for peace: gratitude, meditation on truth, awareness of presence. Gratitude shifts your focus from what's missing to what's meaningful. Meditation stills the waves that toss your thoughts. Awareness reminds you that you are never alone, even in the quiet. These three form the structure where peace can dwell. When you begin practicing gratitude intentionally, you'll feel your spirit settle. Gratitude is the sound of alignment. It reminds you that God is still here, still good, still guiding. Every thank you whispered in faith becomes a weapon against worry. Meditation is not emptying your mind, it's filling it with truth. It's returning your focus to promises that don't shift with circumstance. When you sit in stillness and breathe those truths in, confusion loses its foothold. And awareness, perhaps the most overlooked, teaches you to find God in ordinary moments. In the sunlight through your window, in the laughter of someone you love, in the silence between sentences. You start to realize that peace has been pursuing you all along. You were just too busy to notice. Heaven's peace strategy is not complicated, because truth never needs to be. It is as simple as remembering that your mind is not meant to be your master, it is meant to be your servant. When your spirit leads, your thoughts follow. When your thoughts obey truth, peace reigns. You will not always feel peaceful, but you can always return to it. Peace is not an emotion, it's an environment you maintain through awareness. Some days you'll have to fight for it. Other days it will find you easily. Either way, it's always available. So, when anxiety rises, don't resist it, redirect it. Ask yourself, what truth am I forgetting? The moment you remember, the weight begins to lift. Heaven's peace doesn't erase storms, it equips you to sleep through them. And as you live in that rhythm, something shifts. You stop reacting to everything. You stop letting every change in the world dictate the condition of your mind. You move slower but surer. You speak less but mean more. You think deeply but worry less. That is what divine peace looks like when it fully inhabits you. Heaven's strategy for mental peace isn't about escaping noise. It's about becoming so centered in clarity that noise can no longer move you. You are no longer tossed by waves. You've become the calm within them. You no longer seek peace, you carry it. Peace is no longer something you chase, it is something you release. It flows from the inside out. a steady river that no chaos can pollute, no storm can swallow. And as you walk in that rhythm, your very presence becomes sanctuary. Those who come near will feel what heaven feels like, still, safe, unshakably whole. There is a kind of light that no darkness can counterfeit, the radiance that shines from a focused spirit. It's not loud, not hurried, not desperate. It burns quietly, steadily, like a lantern that has learned to protect its own flame. You've reached that place now, where your focus no longer feels like struggle but strength. This is the crown of focused faith, the mark of those who refuse to bow to distraction, who chose clarity over confusion, endurance over escape. Focused faith is not about never doubting, it's about never surrendering to doubt. It's the decision to believe through the blur, to hold steady when everything tries to shake you loose. There were nights you thought you were breaking, when it felt like faith had slipped through your fingers, but heaven saw differently. You weren't breaking, you were being shaped. Every tear, every delay, every unanswered prayer was refining your focus, not ruining it. According to what is written in the book of James, chapter 1, verse 12, "Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because, having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him." That crown is not made of gold or glory, it's made of clarity, the ability to see light even in the dark, the courage to keep walking when sight fails. You carry that now. You've proven that storms cannot scatter what heaven has sealed. The crown of focused faith is not worn on your head, it's carried in your gaze. It's seen in the way you look at life differently, now calmer, wiser, quieter. It's felt in the way your peace no longer trembles under pressure. That calmness is not weakness, it's royalty. It's the sign of someone who has walked through storms and come out steady. You've learned that focus is not force, it's flow. It's the sacred rhythm of keeping your eyes on what matters and letting everything else fade. You no longer chase everything that shines, you choose what truly glows. Heaven smiles when you do this, because faith that focuses is faith that finishes. The world may still rush around you, trying to drag you back into its noise, but you've outgrown that frequency. You live in a different rhythm now, the rhythm of clarity, the melody of grace. You understand that your peace is precious, your attention is holy, and your presence is power. That's your crown. You don't wear it to be seen, you wear it to stay still. And when the world looks at you, they'll notice it, the quiet steadiness, the soft glow, the unwavering direction. They may not have words for it, but they'll feel it. Because true faith doesn't need to prove itself, it simply stands. So, let this be your coronation moment. The trials you endured were your refining fire. The silence you survived was your anointing oil. The clarity you now carry, that is your crown. And if, in this still moment, something in you stirs, let it move you in whatever way feels honest. Maybe you'll choose to like this message, not out of habit but as an act of recognition, your spirit nodding to the truth it already knows. Maybe you'll share it, not as obligation but as overflow, passing your flame to another who's still walking through the dark. Maybe you'll comment, leaving words that echo through this space like small seeds of light. And maybe you'll subscribe not for content, but for connection, staying close to the stream that reminds you who you are. Because sometimes the smallest gestures are sacred. A click becomes a candle. A comment becomes communion. A share becomes a silent act of service to someone unseen but searching. And all of it flows from love, not duty. This is the beauty of divine engagement. It's never about performance. It's participation in light. It's your soul saying, I'm still here. I still believe. I still burn. Let it be gentle. Let it be genuine. Let it be your choice. Freely given and beautifully real. For every act of agreement you make, heaven writes your yes into eternity, sealing your crown with quiet glory. And as your heart settles into this truth, feel how the crown doesn't sit on you, it settles in you. A gentle warmth, a quiet rise, a knowing that your clarity is now part of your very breath. You don't force it, you simply become it. With each step you take from here, the world will feel your steadiness the way one feels sunlight without looking at the sky. Soft, sure, unmistakable. Your presence will speak before your words ever do, carrying the calm authority of someone who has chosen focus over frenzy and faith over fear. And when others wonder how you became this unshakable, you won't need to explain. Your life will be the explanation, your pace, your peace, your posture, a living testimony that clarity is not a gift reserved for the flawless, but a crown given to the faithful. There is a stillness that comes when your mind finally learns to trust truth. You no longer fight for focus, it flows through you like breath. This is what it means to walk in unshakable clarity. You are not moved by every voice, every fear, every shift in the world. You have become anchored in something deeper, divine understanding. Clarity is not perfection, it's perception purified by peace. It doesn't mean you have all the answers, it means you are no longer afraid of the questions. To walk in clarity is to live free from panic, to think without torment, to trust without trembling. It is to walk through uncertainty without losing your footing, because your foundation is no longer feelings, it's faith. As the ancient words recorded in the book of Psalms, chapter 16, verse 8 declare, I have set the Lord always before me, because he is at my right hand. I shall not be shaken. Unshakable clarity begins with that alignment, setting your gaze, not on what changes, but on what endures. When God becomes your reference point, the shifting world cannot disorient you. Distraction loses power when direction becomes sacred. You are learning that clarity is not found in having control. It's found in trusting the one who does. There was a time when every storm sent you spiraling, when every silence felt like abandonment. But now, you recognize the difference between absence and assignment. You've learned that sometimes heaven withdraws noise so that revelation can echo louder. When clarity takes root, silence becomes your teacher, not your enemy. You start to see differently. Where confusion once clouded, discernment now defines. The same situation that used to overwhelm you becomes an opportunity for wisdom. Clarity rewires how you perceive everything. It filters your thoughts through truth, not trauma. What once felt personal, you now recognize as preparation. You see divine fingerprints in what used to look like failure. Walking in unshakable clarity doesn't mean life grows easy. It means your spirit grows stable. Problems don't vanish, but panic does. You begin to observe challenges without absorbing them. You learn to pause before reacting, to ask before assuming, to listen before speaking. That's what happens when peace leads you move slower, but you move stronger. This is maturity, not the absence of struggle, but the mastery of stillness. You stop living from reaction and start living from revelation. You no longer allow emotions to drive decisions. You let discernment do it. When your focus aligns with heaven, you find that every choice carries light, and every step becomes deliberate. To walk in unshakable clarity is to become immune to manipulation. The opinions that once swayed you now sound like distant echoes. You no longer need validation to feel valued, because you've seen your worth reflected in divine eyes. That's why confusion no longer fits. It was designed for a version of you that didn't yet know its authority. There will still be moments when fog tries to return, when uncertainty whispers again. But now you'll recognize it for what it is, an old storm looking for a new invitation. And you'll simply smile, breathe, and remain. Because clarity doesn't chase away darkness, it outshines it. You've learned that peace isn't the absence of noise. It's the decision to stay aligned even when the noise remains. Your speech begins to change. You stop speaking from fear. Start declaring from faith. You no longer say, "I hope it works out." You begin to say, "It's already being worked out." Your language becomes light itself. Your words carry weight, and your presence becomes a calm many can feel, but few can explain. People around you will notice it. They won't understand why they feel safe in your presence, but they will. That's because clarity carries atmosphere. When your mind is steady, it becomes a sanctuary others can rest near. You've become what the world desperately needs, a living reflection of peace. Unshakable clarity makes you unstoppable, not through force, but through faithfulness. It keeps you from reacting to every crisis because your vision is fixed beyond them. You've learned that not everything deserves your energy, that silence is sometimes the loudest strategy. You choose presence over panic, purpose over pressure. The unshakable mind doesn't chase signs, it creates them. Everywhere you go, peace follows. Everything you touch begins to reflect the order you carry inside. That is the fruit of divine focus, an internal stillness that redefines the external. You are not who you were when this journey began. The confusion that once ruled you now serves as proof of how far you've come. You walk in clarity that cannot be stolen, peace that cannot be faked, focus that cannot be fractured. You no longer hope for alignment, you live in it. And when heaven looks upon you now, it sees a mind renewed, a spirit refined, and a heart fully aware of its mission. You have become the embodiment of divine steadiness, a soul that no storm can sway. There is a quiet glory that comes when you finally realize you've been transformed, not by dramatic moments, but by daily decisions to stay grounded when everything tried to shake you, to stay faithful when everything tried to distract you, to stay still when everything demanded reaction. This is the final alignment to be guarded, grounded, and glorious. You no longer wake up fighting your thoughts, you wake up leading them. You no longer live at the mercy of noise, you live in mastery of peace. You have become the watchman of your own mind, the keeper of your inner temple. The battle that once drained you has now refined you. You are not weary, you are wise. The scars of confusion have become marks of clarity. The struggles that once made you tremble have turned into the pillars that hold you steady. As it is written in the book of Isaiah, chapter 26, verse 3, "You will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast, because they trust in you." That promise has become your reality. perfect peace is no longer a theory, it's a practice. You have learned to guard your thoughts the way a shepherd guards his flock. Gently but firmly. You no longer let fear graze freely in the pastures of your mind. You've learned to close the gate when worry knocks, to open it when wisdom arrives. Being guarded doesn't mean being closed off, it means being conscious. It's knowing when to pause before you allow something to enter your inner space. It's learning that boundaries are not barriers, they're blessings. They protect what's pure, preserve what's precious, and keep you positioned for purpose. Groundedness has become your new posture. You walk through the world unhurried, aware, and alive. You no longer need chaos to feel purposeful, nor noise to feel significant. You've learned that peace is not emptiness, it's depth. You've replaced striving with stillness and replaced panic with prayer. Your very rhythm has changed. Heaven has tuned you to its tempo, and your life now moves in sync with divine flow. You've begun to notice that your responses have matured. Where once you reacted, you now reflect. Where once you argued, you now observe. The moments that once made you anxious now invite you into awareness. This is what spiritual authority looks like, not loudness, but lightness, not control, but calm. You've learned that the greatest power lies in restraint, in the ability to stand steady when the world expects you to shatter. And glorious, yes, glorious is the right word for it, because what radiates from you now is not perfection but presence. The light in your eyes isn't borrowed, it's born from endurance. It's the glow of someone who has seen darkness and still chosen light. Glory is not the absence of battle, it's the evidence of victory. It's the reflection of heaven on the face of someone who refused to surrender to confusion. When you look back, you'll see that every season was necessary. Every delay, every detour, every silence, all of it served a purpose. The times you thought God was distant were actually the moments He was deepening your roots. You thought you were waiting, but you were being woven. Heaven doesn't rush masterpieces, and that's what you've become. Now, your life itself has become a message. You are living proof that peace is possible, that clarity is not a myth, that the mind can be renewed even after years of noise. When others see you, they'll see what focus looks like when it's anchored in faith. They'll sense it, the steady calm that cannot be faked. You have become a reflection of divine steadiness in a world that glorifies chaos. You are not easily moved, not easily manipulated, not easily broken. You walk with the dignity of someone who knows their worth and the humility of someone who knows their source. Every thought you guard now is a seed of peace for the next generation. Every moment of awareness you practice becomes a legacy of stillness for those who follow. The focus you fought for will ripple outward, touching hearts you may never meet. That's the hidden impact of clarity. It multiplies quietly, endlessly. And so, as this journey draws to its quiet conclusion, remember, the goal was never just peace of mind, it was peace of being. You were never meant to escape the world, but to embody heaven within it. You are guarded, grounded, and glorious, not someday, not soon, but now. You carry the atmosphere of heaven wherever you go. The world may shift, but you will not. The storms may rise, but your roots are deep. The noise may call, but your focus will remain faithful. You have become the living proof that divine clarity is not fleeting, it is forever. And as you walk onward, light follows your steps. The air around you feels different still, sacred, certain, as if even creation recognizes the steadiness you now carry within. And now, the journey rests. The message has done what it came to do. It found you, shaped you, and reminded you who you are, the chosen one, reborn in focus, remade in clarity. You have walked through confusion and come out crowned with understanding. You have learned to see not just with your eyes, but with your spirit. You have become both the message and the messenger. This is not the end, it is a continuation. The stillness you feel right now is not emptiness, it's transition. Heaven is pausing, not to close the story, but to breathe through it one more time. Because what you've received is meant to be carried, shared, lived. Every truth planted here becomes light wherever you go. And when you feel that light inside stir, let it move you in whatever way feels right. Maybe you'll choose to like this moment as a gentle nod to heaven's whisper, a way of saying, I'm still listening. Maybe you'll share it, not because you have to, but because someone you love might need the same reminder of peace. Maybe you'll comment a word, an emoji, a quiet amen, something small that echoes agreement across unseen spaces. And maybe you'll subscribe, not as a routine act, but as a return to rhythm, a choice to stay connected to what strengthens your spirit. Each action becomes its own offering, a candle lit in the digital dark, a ripple of remembrance that light still wins. Let every touch, every gesture, every word be done in freedom, not force. This is the beauty of divine alignment. Heaven never demands, it invites. So walk forward with calm certainty. The world is waiting for the peace you now carry. Let your focus speak louder than noise, your stillness brighter than flame, your life proof that heaven still writes through human hearts.